a recent trip to a U.S. training post in a free Germany, I met brave young men and women from Ukraine who were learning how to fight for their lives and for their country. And today, I am more determined than ever to stand by them for as long as it takes.
Welcome back to America Decides. That was Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin in Normandy, France, commemorating the 79th anniversary of D-Day. He connected the fight for freedom then to the ongoing war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Kyiv and Moscow are trading blame for an attack on a key dam in Russian-occupied southern Ukraine. Here was National Security Council Coordinator John Kirby on the matter.
We've been closely monitoring the impacts of that destruction, which has triggered massive flooding in Ukraine and resulted in the evacuation of, at the very least, thousands of Ukrainians. We know there are casualties, including likely many deaths.
CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joins us now. Hi, Ed. So what is the White House saying about who was responsible for the attack on this dam?
They're not saying much yet, Nancy, as they continue to assess whether or not it was the Russians who blew up a dam that they've taken control of, or whether it was the Ukrainians, as the Russians allege. Although notably, Ukrainian leaders today had pointed out that the way the dam blew up would have required explosions from within the structure itself, or to have had total control of it, which the Ukrainians do not. Not being intimately familiar with the design of it, that seems like a compelling argument. But the White House, so far at least, not taking a stand on this. They've been notably cautious in what they say about what's going on over there right now. They were asked to describe the ongoing Ukrainian military operations yesterday and refused to say that it is the counteroffensive, although CBS News has heard from U.S. officials, or David Martin at the Pentagon had said that the best way to characterize this now is that they're in the beginnings of that counteroffensive, which is what makes this explosion at the dam and the subsequent flooding so troublesome, because it's going to have a broader humanitarian effect now that the region has been worried about for the last several weeks.
Ed, lots of foreign news today. You also asked about the PGA Tour and Live Golf merger. Does the White House have any comment on this very controversial merger?
Notably, they did not, Nancy. And you know, we should point out that the conversation we had with them, our daily briefing, was occurring right around the same time the Secretary of State was arriving in Saudi Arabia for a trip that's expected to include time with the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman. So it may have had to do with that they just simply didn't want to be engaging on a sensitive matter regarding Saudi Arabia when they know the top diplomat is supposed to be meeting with senior Saudi leadership. And the timing of this was just so tricky in that regard. We'll see in the coming days whether or not the White House or the Justice Department has something to say about any potential antitrust concerns or dealings with foreign agents. Certainly there are lawmakers today, notably Democrats, who said that, yes, this is something that should be up for review, at least to make sure that the PGA isn't violating some kind of law or antitrust provision that sports leagues enjoy. Remember, they're all nonprofits and have been allowed to operate, but under congressional oversight. And so we'll see in the coming days if this becomes a bigger political issue. Certainly, of course, all issues regarding Saudi Arabia have been in recent years because of its human rights record, the death of the Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi, and other concerns about its human rights record. So I tell you, though, it is a story that has permeated across Washington, across society, as word broke today of this coming up. So inevitably, the White House is going to have something to say about it.
Such a good point, though, that they might want to tread lightly while the Secretary of State is meeting with Saudi officials. On a totally different topic, Ed, such a busy week for the Republican field for 2024. You've got several GOP candidates jumping into the race just this week. What's the latest on President Biden's bid for re-election? Things have been noticeably quiet on that front lately.
And it will continue to be that way through much of the rest of this calendar year, according to those that are helping put the campaign together. They point to what Barack Obama was doing back in 2011, mostly raising money, tacking on political events to official travel. We expect the president to pick that up again now that the debt limit fight is over and he's been occupied here in Washington. Expect to hear about fundraising swings later this month into July, probably a handful in August as well, as they try to pad their coffers. and raise as much money himself or the vice president or the first lady, and especially the second gentleman as this gets underway. A former donor himself is expected to be quite active on the fundraising circuit. Otherwise, the campaign itself, the Democratic National Committee, sit back, watch, and continue to just fill the research packets on each of these Republican contenders. They've pointed out to us for much of the last year that they've been tracking about 24 potential Republican presidential hopefuls. Christie, Pence, and even the North Dakota governor, Doug Burgum, who's getting in this week, have all been on that list, and they remain poised and prepared for whoever ultimately emerges, though obviously Democrats would prefer to see a rematch with former President Trump because they continue to believe that's when they can win. Right,
and there's this theory of the case that it's not such a bad thing for the Biden campaign to lay low, let the Republicans duke it out in the public eye for now. Ed O'Keefe, thanks so much for bringing your insight today.
Take care.